Broadcasting on Star Worldwide Networks. It's Two Small Biz Guys. And now, here are your hosts, Zen Benefiel and Ray Silverstein.
And welcome to Two Small Biz Guys. How you doing today, Ray?
I'm in super duper. How are you doing?
Super duper ooper? Super duper. Oh, no, that's, who was that? Oh, yeah, that was the
Big Bopper.
That was Frankenstein on Young Frankenstein, right? Remember the...
I only know the old Frankenstein, not the young one.
Oh, okay. Well, the young one is much funnier.
I had a friend whose name was Frankenstein, last name, and he used to go to Las Vegas.
Yeah.
And he used to watch them.
When you look at the knockers on that one.
Right. And he would watch the people putting money in the slot machines. And after they put a lot of money in and walk away, he would walk over and he'd have all these coins. This one, they gave out coins.
Right.
And he would point a coin in and pull the handle and throw all this money in the hopper and scream and yell. So the people would turn around. That was a Frankenstein movement.
Yeah, okay. Well, speaking of movements, we're going to be slow moving today. No, we're actually going to be pretty quick. We're going to talk about The 4-Hour Workweek by Timothy Ferriss. And this is a book that it was great, bestseller for a while. And it got everybody thinking about, okay, how do I pare down? What do I think the key word there is delegate, right?
Well, I think the key word is really effectiveness, because he talks about the aspect of efficiency.
Okay, we just move further on down the alphabet.
Well,
that's
okay.
fine.
Well, that's true.
We'll go to F
farther.
in a minute.
I get a high E.
Okay.
So, but the aspect is, paring down is part of it, or delegation. But delegation means how do you, what is the aspect of delegation? Why do you delegate? You delegate because
to be more effective.
Yeah, so you can be more effective on the things that really have a higher degree of importance, and let somebody else handle things that have a lesser degree of importance.
Now, in the book, he talks about the new rich and the deferred or defers.
Right.
And so we'll be making some references to those just so you know.
But let's define what the deferrers and new rich are. I mean, basically, his definition is kind of that the deferrers are people who are staying in a position, staying in work.
Or they're looking for work.
No, the deferrers are people who are basically possibly looking for work, but also staying at work and staying because they don't want to be entrepreneurial.
They're the rut stuckers.
Well, if you want to call it that.
Stuck rutters.
Or whichever way.
Yeah.
And he's talking about these people who stay in those positions for a longer time and are looking into the retirement plan of the organization, which is fine.
Mm-hmm.
And the new rich, he talks about those people who go into an entrepreneurial type of environment and want to create their own work, whether it be in the new technology area or even in the old areas. They
just want to be on their own boats. They want to be in charge of their time and their efforts and their results.
Right. They want to be their own boss.
Right.
They call their own shots. Absolutely. You got a star in your chart for that one.
Oh, boy. Another gold star. Hey, that's 2 in a row now.
Okay. That's good. So he talks about if you are in this, he calls the people who are kind of what he calls a D, the deferrers. He says they don't want to challenge the status quo. They're happy with the status quo.
Well, we were talking about status quo when we were talking about the escape velocity.
Right.
And what is the status quo, first of all? And if you have one, why? First of all, because in business you always want to be either, according to escape velocity anyway, you want to be changing your product. You either want to break it, yourself. You want to build something new. You want to constantly be destroying your current market in order to create a new one.
Yeah,
right?
but on the status quo, for example, he states, my belief is retirement is the worst case scenario.
I didn't know you were a believer.
Certain things.
Okay.
So retirement to me, I would think would be extremely boring. I mean, who wants to go shopping to the grocery store with their wife? I mean, I can think of far better. Unless I'm looking for chocolate chips or something like that. But who wants to go to the grocery store all the time and push the cart? So my belief is that
depends on whether you're single or not.
Okay. So then you got to push your own cart.
Right.
A cart pusher is what you need. But if you want to be in an environment that you create your own goals, create your own vision, you want to be able to do your own stuff, and that's what he's primarily talking about.
So in that respect, then, a lot of folks consider retirement, and that's what they look forward to. Well, with this kind of mentality or mindset, there really is no retirement. That's not a question. You're going to be doing stuff for your entire life, because that's the worst case scenario, is to retire, because then you're not doing anything.
Right, because you want the challenge. You want to change the status quo. We talked about before about chaos. So you want a certain amount of chaos.
And with the way Social Security is, that may not be there when you do retire.
Right, so that's true. But you want the energy, and you want to learn about things. So he's talking about the aspect of.
So it's flawed, right?
Well, I don't know. It depends upon what you want in life.
Well, according to him, it's flawed for 3 solid reasons. It's predicated on the assumptions that you dislike what you're doing during most of the time. Okay, but like we were talking on the last show, if you don't like what you're doing, then you probably ought to be someplace else, or you're going to cause problems mentally, and even health-wise. You're going to create more stress, which is going to respond in your body, and you're going to be upset or sick, or who knows, you might even develop some kind of terminal illness from all the stress that you put yourself through. So the second thing is, most people will never be able to retire and maintain their standard of living. That's a big concern for a lot of people, because they go from being able to move about the cabin to being in a condo.
Well, that's true. And the aspect is that when people do retire, they have a certain amount of capital, and therefore their concern is primarily preservation of capital.
Sure. Well, it depends on where that condo is, too. Yeah. I mean, if the condo has all the amenities, then you don't really need to move about the cabin.
Well, but the aspect isn't whether it's his belief or not. And I think it comes back to what the person's belief is, what they really want to accomplish. So let's take this into the business aspect, because he's talking about the 4-hour work week,
right? Which
means basically that you want to work less, or you want to be more effective. So he's talking about, one of his aspects is that you only work when you're going to be most effective. So if you're tired, you don't work. So a lot of people think that, if I have to, as a business owner, I have to put in a 10-hour day or a 12-hour day or whatever it is, because they have a mindset that I have to be busy, doing.
Mm-hmm.
And
that's not necessarily effective.
That's right. So his aspect is, and I try to do this before I read the book, is that when I get tired, I just lay down, because when you go to do something, it takes you twice as long, and you don't do it as well. So why even bother doing it?
Yeah, because your mind is distracted when you're tired, and it's thinking about, I don't want to do this, or I'm tired, or whatever. And that's where, like we were talking on the last show, the challenge to change. You have those personal limitations, liabilities, and excuses that creep in that keep you from being effective.
Yeah. So you have this aspect of when you're tired, don't do it. He also talks about that less is not laziness. So a lot of people think that if I have to do stuff, and if I do these things, I'm really accomplishing things. And the question is, are you really accomplishing? So he goes back and he says, focusing on the productive rather than on just being busy. And I think I related the question to you. I grew up in kind of a family business, and my father used to call me every day and say, Ray, what do you do today? And that was easy. And then one day he said, Ray, what did you accomplish today? And that was, So the aspect is...
Change the question on you.
Well, he changed the question on me, but the change of the question had a lot of ramifications, because
sure,
you want to be effective and you want to accomplish. Just to do doesn't mean you've accomplished anything.
And we often think the two mean the same thing.
Right. So you're right. People think that because I did this, I did 15 different things. He also has, this author also has a believer that a lot of people have to-do lists. So he says keep the to-do list short, but he also says you ought to create a do-not list. Do not do list. I left the do out there.
Right.
So,
well, it's like that plaque that you've got that says,
there's no sense doing well. They should not be doing at all. So the aspect is, you say to yourself, what should I do? What am I doing that I should not do? And you put that on your do not do list.
So this gets into the realms of risk, right? So I'm risking something by not doing.
That's right. So I'm risking something. So the question is, how much of a risk is it?
Now, there's two ways of not doing, right? There's the delegating, getting somebody else to do it, or simply not doing.
Right.
Maybe it's just an activity that you need to let go of and eliminate.
Right. So you, or the other aspect is you can put it off and come back to it later, but that's kind of still doing it.
Right. Well, many projects and business owners, there's certain aspects of the business that are kind of cyclical, right? You tend to them for a little bit. It's like a garden. You tend to a plant and you let it go for a while, and then eventually you come back and you got to do a little weeding, a little watering, and then let it go for a while, and then you come back. Well, when you have many such plants, and that's not a facility joke, but when you have many such plants, you've got all of these different aspects and different tasks, different different things in the business that have their own time frames and schedules, and the more you can step back and look at those, the more you can determine which ones are the most important to take care of, and which ones have their own momentum and you can allow others to manage.
Right. So, but again, you brought up the question of risk, and you're right that others can manage. Now the question is, do they have the capability, do they have the skill, and do they have the training? And also, I think the aspect is, have you given them the authority? Now, many times people give them the responsibility, but they don't give authority.
Those are often termed micromanagers.
So the aspect,
they'll give you the details, or they'll give you the task, and then they'll constantly come around and tell you how to do it.
Well, but they also, or look over your shoulder all the time. So
right.
The aspect is that when you have others,
neither of which are effective.
Okay, but when you talk about the delegation aspect, if you're going to give that person the opportunity to do this, they also have the authority to do it, because then you still haven't handed it off. Now you have to be careful between abdication and delegation.
Right.
Because abdication,
you don't want to abdicate the throne.
That's right. You don't want to abdicate the whole. What was that last word?
Abdicate the throne.
Oh, abdicate the throne. Okay, it sounds like a kingly thing to do.
Yeah, absolutely. Stately.
Stately. Oh, stately. Okay. He also talks about ask for forgiveness, not
That's
permission.
not a state of confusion, though.
He asked for permission, for forgiveness.
Three
ask
on
for,
that one.
Ask for forgiveness and
Ray,
not permission.
come back.
Which I find is a very interesting statement, because that comes up in these groups, which I facilitate all the time, where people, I tell them, go ahead and do it. You don't, if you screw up, ask for forgiveness. But if you ask for permission, it never gets done.
It's easier to ask for forgiveness and permission. Just go do it. And, oftentimes when you take the initiative to go do something, it will often have beneficial
but
you're good for more results.
But you also have to be willing to accept the downside on it.
And the downside is that we've got a break for commercial. And we'll be right back with you with Two Small Biz Guys. Thanks for listening.
Two Small Biz Guys with Zen and Ray. We'll be back after this.
The digital world is vast. Is it working for you? Would you like some qualified help? Zen Benefiel is a wonder with social media who leads focused and organized workshops on multiple platforms like Facebook, Google+, and LinkedIn. He leads by example, not theory, and teaches you how to live large and lively on the web. From blogs to SEO, his web presence speaks for itself. Take advantage of his expertise. Visit BeTheDream.com and click on Web Wizardry. Hire him while you can.
Business owners want to call their own shots, make appropriate income, and control their destiny. Our passion is to help you achieve your goals. A Pro Peer Advisory Board is just the thing. It's a confidential monthly meeting of non-competitive owners facilitated by a pro who has walked in your shoes. He's your mentor and tormentor, moving you ahead. When you have issues or opportunities keeping you awake, where do you get help? Pro boards give support and non-biased feedback from your peers. To sample a free Pro President's board meeting, email ray@propres.com. There's no commitment or charge. Email ray@propres.com. You're listening to Two Small Biz Guys. Now, back to your hosts, Zen Benefiel and Ray Silverstein.
And welcome back to Two Small Biz Guys. We just broke from commercial, and we're going to now. What's the reverse of break? How can you come back from that?
What, the downside?
If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Oh,
well,
so it's broke and we're fixing.
Well, the aspect is, okay, that's an interesting comment. People always say, if it's not broke, don't fix it.
Right.
And the aspect is, if you believe in that philosophy, you never will move things forward, because many things work okay, but is okay really good enough? So, I mean, if you go back in history, I mean...
Who was it, Paul Pilsner or Pilsner that said, if it ain't broke, break it?
Oh, yeah. And sometimes if you want to stay in business, you got to take that philosophy.
Well, that's what Escape Velocity was about.
Yeah.
You know.
You must have liked that book. I mean, you talked about that all the time. We can't escape from that.
I just like Escape Velocity, man. It's just that speed. It's a need for speed.
You need a fast car.
I want to get out of here.
That's right.
Yeah.
So, but
I'm not comfortable on this planet. I want off.
Okay, but some of the things which you bring up, are very kind of interesting, because if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So if a person is in a job that they really don't like, it's not broken. They're kind of going along.
It's meeting their needs.
And this fellow's advocating, you gotta change that. And so you're in a business and you're operating a business.
That gets into complacency.
Yeah, that's true. So you have a business and you're going along, it's okay, but it's not going along to maybe your complete satisfaction. Maybe it's your quality, maybe it's your shipment, maybe it's the profitability. So you got to do something. So therefore, you cause a change. Or
maybe it's the people.
That's right. That's true.
Because ultimately, whatever business you're in, it's people that gets things done.
That's true.
And speaking of people getting things done, this kind of begins or allows us to move into the risk threshold. And when you're changing things, when you're delegating, and you're stepping away and you're giving things to others, there's a risk threshold. How much is it going to cost me? What are my mistakes worth? Or what am I willing to let go of if I do make a mistake?
Right. Or if somebody else makes a mistake.
Well, I'm saying, you make the mistake by delegating it to the wrong person, and they don't.
The author the author relates a circumstance that he was working like 100 hours a week, and he wanted to get. After doing that for a couple of years, he thought that this was kind of silly, and he wanted to have a life. So he came to the conclusion that he had to delegate certain things. And he came to a conclusion as to what was the monetary amount of risk he was willing to take to delegate certain items.
Mm-hmm.
And at that time, this is several years ago, he would delegate minor things which he thought had $100 of value.
That's not much.
So if the person screwed up, it would cost him $100.
That's a night out.
Yeah. So if a person screwed up, that'd be $100. So he was willing to accept that. But as you grow with an individual and as you get more trust, you start raising that threshold as to higher values that you're willing to hand off, because you gain the trust and the confidence that they can do it. So therefore, you raise the threshold for them, and also you raise the threshold for yourself as to areas of effectiveness that you have to work in.
And we were talking about the emotion in the last show, the effect emotionally of having that success, building the trust factor, and reciprocally from both owner, manager, staff, employee. That raises the bar for everyone, because there's an uptake in energy and enthusiasm because of that.
Right. But I also think, going back to days when I had my companies, I always like to work in all the new things, because working on the old things became kind of dull. It was kind of repetitive.
Sure.
So one of the aspects is by delegating, you now have the ability to work on the new and exciting things, which, at least in your perception, and move into new areas. And you can grow with that. And you're giving other people the opportunity to also learn and handle new things and grow. So,
well, that goes into what the author talks about: capacity, interest, and mental endurance all wax and wane. So when you're fully interested and engaged in something, you're really productive. Most of the time you're really effective, and then when you become conscious that your energy is waning, that's where you want to step away from the machine for a while, whatever that may be, right? And go do something, or go play around of golf, or
you got to do
have
something,
a drink or whatever.
Otherwise, life is no fun. I mean,
right. And less doesn't necessarily mean laziness.
No.
Either. Even though we all are lazy, we've got to admit that most of us, if we had a choice between doing and not doing, we'd rather go have fun.
Well, I don't know.
It depends on what the fun is, right?
Well, okay, but is that being lazy or not? I mean, what is the definition of lazy? What you're saying
Well,
there,
as I see most people in the companies that I've been in, the coaching, there's a certain degree of laziness that we all have that it goes beyond that which we shouldn't, or what your plaque says, right? There's a reticence for taking risk. There's a reticence for being responsible, having accountability. I think it is the biggie.
Okay, well, we're kind of going off subject, but that's okay. But the question is that really laziness, or is that really lack of engagement? So the aspect is
I
that,
see your point.
so the person who was,
upon reflection, I think that has more to do with lack of engagement.
Okay.
You're correct.
So so one of the responsibilities. No, it was also very
lazy. Just means then that you don't have the energy for it.
Right. So if you're not engaged, you also don't have the energy. It was
right.
Also interesting this morning. I mentioned that I was at where they're giving results of a survey on small business owners' education.
Survey says. By the way, we have a survey up on our Two Small Biz Guys website. It's a short survey. If you're listening and would like to go there and take the survey, we would surely appreciate that. We will publish the results over time. And it's just a real small, short, sweet, and to the point, succinct survey for you.
Okay, it's all those S's. Okay.
Yeah.
But
you did the alliteration on one of our other shows.
But the interesting thing on this survey is that the item they had the lowest score of small business owners wanting to get education was on employee enhancement. And it's really interesting because if you go to a business owner and you say, what's your number one asset? They'll say, my employees are my number one asset.
Right.
But yet, when it comes to increasing the skill and engagement of the employees, it seems to have the lowest lack of interest.
Right. Well,
and there's a dichotomy here, because if you really believe your employees are number one, you really want to engage. You really want to engage your employees, work with your employees, educate your employees, so you get the highest maximum.
And your HR staff shouldn't be the first ones that you lay off when business goes south. This is one of the things. I was on the board of directors for the local chapter of what was then called the American Society for Training and Development. It's now the Association for Talent Development.
Can I sing with that? I mean,
almost. Could you hum a few bars? I don't know.
I know a few bars, but
but none worth humming. Okay. At a national leadership conference, I met a bunch of folks who were training and development leaders for their various companies and corporations. And it was amazing during this time. This was 2008, 2009. Of course, it was going along with the bust after the boom. And one of the companies, one of the hotels or hotel chains in Las Vegas, went from 26 talent development instructional designers and whatnot down to 2.
Mm-hmm.
So if that is how we're treating, and this is not just one, this is one that I remember, when you've got that kind of momentum or that kind of reflection from management as to because it really comes off as a lack of importance of the employee development as opposed to an encouragement of it.
Yeah, in that particular case, yes. But the aspect is, what does the company really believe, and so their belief system, their behavior indicates what their true belief is by cutting back in those areas.
Well, the budget needed to be reduced because of the level of activity. It was where they chose to reduce it.
Yeah, But I mean, I'm just saying that paraphrasing in general, that people talk about employees are extremely important. We talked about the ability to delegate. To delegate, you have to have good employees, and therefore you want to make the investment in the employees. And this particular survey results show that there was the least amount of interest, which is a big separation of fact. It becomes fact and fiction as to what you really want to do. And if you believe that employees are your number one asset,
and that wasn't a faux pas, it does become friction within the employee base.
Right. Well, I don't know. Maybe now you correct me, you're probably right. We had to get it right.
There is no fiction in the friction.
No,
it's obvious. And speaking of being obvious, we're going to take a quick break here, and we'll be right back with you. Thanks for listening to Two Small Biz Guys, and we are not lazy.
Two Small Biz Guys with Zen and Ray. We'll be back after this. As a business owner, have you ever felt alone at the top? You don't have to be. Ray Silverstein has worked with many business owners for over 20 years facilitating peer advisory boards. He is the proverbial mentor and tormentor. A Pro President's Peer Advisory Board is a confidential monthly meeting of non-competitive owners that give support, feedback, and knowledge. They know the adage, all of us are smarter than one of us. He has walked in your shoes, having owned and sold 2 companies with sales in excess of $60 million and approximately 1,300 employees. In Young President's organization, he participated in peer advisory boards and felt it was a key to his success. His passion is to help small business owners succeed. He knows peer boards work when you are open, don't feel like you know it all, are willing to put issues on the table, and willing to take criticism. Be his guest at a Pro Advisory Board meeting to see if it works for you. There's no commitment to join, and you'll have a great experience. To sample a free Pro Business Owner Peer Board, email ray@propres.com. That's ray@propres.com. There's no commitment or charge.
The digital world is vast. Is it working for you? Would you like some qualified help? Zen Benefiel is a wonder with social media who leads focused and organized workshops on multiple platforms like Facebook, Google+, and LinkedIn. He leads by example, not theory, and teaches you how to live large and lively on the web. From blogs to SEO, his web presence speaks for itself. Take advantage of his expertise. Visit BeTheDream.com and click on Web Wizardry. Hire him while you can.
You're listening to Two Small Biz Guys. Now, back to your hosts, Zen Benefiel and Ray Silverstein.
Welcome back to Two Small Biz Guys, and like I said before, we are not lazy. We're going to move right along here, and we're going to cover
we may be hazy, but not lazy.
Hazy, lazy, crazy. I think is more the term. Okay,
you're a poet.
Crazy for you.
You are a poet.
I am, and I certainly don't know it.
But your feet show it because
timing's never right is one of the points. Ask for forgiveness, not permission. We already talked about that. Emphasize strengths. Don't fix weaknesses. Things in excess become their opposite, so be aware of that. Money alone is never the solution. There are other things about that. Relative income is more important than absolute income, and distress is bad. Eustress is good. You stress, he stress, we stress, our stress. What's that mean?
Eustress?
Eustress.
I don't
stress.
I don't know.
Eustress? Okay, well, I don't know either. So
eustress means having healthy role models who push and exceed our limits. That's what it means.
So absolutely, healthy role models, setting that, who do we look up to? What kind of example? The leadership, what we do, how we behave, what we say, and our follow through means everything to those who are watching us.
Okay, but you have to be careful with that, because you use in the same sentence or same group of words, you say what we say and how we behave. And it's really, what you say means nothing if your behavior doesn't follow what you say.
That's exactly what my point was.
So how you behave is really the key ingredient there, more so than what you say. Because if you say A and you do B, people lose trust.
The two things have to align. You've got to do what you say what you mean, do what you say, and everything works out. If you don't, there's a disconnect because everybody sees it.
Right.
You may not, and you may not realize it unless you have some good employees that are willing to confront you in that. And
Right.
good leaders, always want criticism.
Or they just welcome it. Right.
Right. They welcome it.
Okay.
Okay. And that means that oftentimes you have to change. And change means conquering fear. We talked about the challenge to change and the limitations, liabilities, and excuses. Having to address those three things in oneself can be pretty fearful. Right? But you've got to
Right.
do it. And you've got to define what that fear is and then move through it.
Right. But defining fear, again, we talked about that a little bit briefly before. And fear is also recognizing what is the worst case scenario.
Yeah. Define your nightmare.
Define your nightmare. What is the worst case? And if it's just
Is
one,
there a daymare?
it could be. It's called a horse.
Yeah.
That runs a Pimlico or something like that. But the
Of
aspect
course.
is, of course, a horse.
Mr. Ed.
But once you know what that fear is, the question is it really an issue of substance, or is it just something that you kind of put up there, an emotional type of issue?
Nay.
Okay.
So, what's it costing you financially, emotionally, and physically to postpone action? What are you waiting for? Okay, then, so that's, is it unrealistic to take that and just move forward? Or is the doing really the realistic thing to do?
Well, many times you get over the fear by just doing.
Right.
Doing is for people who are, kind of oppressed, or not oppressed, but they're suppressed, or whatever. They're in a downer.
Impressed, I think, is the better. And what do you really want?
Okay, but when they're in a downer, sometimes doing just gets you out of the downer. But again, he's talking about going into
Oftentimes,
business.
work does get you through.
Yeah, he's talking about what do you really want. But I think the key in this whole discussion is if you go into business, I know you want to go through all these little things, but I think the main issue here is he talks about the end of
You take
time.
care of the little things, the big things will take care of themselves.
Right. The end of time management. It's interesting, if you go back 20 or 30 years ago, time management had to do primarily with efficiency. Be able to do more, get more things done.
Well, most things were assembly line.
Well, they were assembly line.
Whether it's tools or
but-
automobiles
yeah.
or snowmobiles or whatever, there's this production.
Right, but even in individual behavior, when a person was in an office, they talked about, okay, how can I get more things done? And today, the
Multitasking.
here the aspect of time efficiency or time management really comes down into the word effectiveness. We talked about this a lot, but I think that the key in this generation today,
We can never talk about effectiveness too much.
yeah, because effectiveness becomes a question of focus. And doing those things which are really have the focus to get what you really want to get done. And again, we talked about the small business who's owner, or small business people who are busy, or people in general. They think that getting things done gives them a satisfaction. My older daughter, when she was in high school, she played three
But
sports.
it does. Getting things done does provide some satisfaction.
Oh yeah,
Because you can check it off your list.
yeah. As I say, my older daughter in high school, she used to love to put a line through things getting done. She played three sports, so she had to be very organized. So she used to get up in the morning, cross that off, brush teeth, cross that off, get dressed, cross it off, because she got a satisfaction from crossing off all these things. But
And what her list looks like today.
well, I think she got over that habit.
Yeah, I would hope so.
But she was very, very, very efficient.
And now
she
but not listless.
But also, to play three sports in high school and two in college, you have to be extremely effective because you don't have a lot of time.
Right. Well, there's a difference between being lazy and listless.
That's true. Now, he talks about the aspect, we talked about the question of effectiveness and efficiency, but he also talks about two tools that you can use. One is Pareto's theory of mail distribution, which we talked about before. In
The
earlier
80-20
show,
principle,
the
right.
80-20 principle. And he also
And that's one of our worksheets on practicalbizu.com.
Right, and you ought to go in and get it.
Yeah.
Just
I did. I have
go.
it. You. Oh, that's the general you. That's you, the public.
Yeah, you just
our listeners.
You sounds like a little sheep, but you just go in and get it by going to practicalbizcom.u.
That was bad.
That's BIZ, and you can get. There's a whole bunch of good stuff you can get there. But the other rule he also talks about is Parkinson's law, where things
My dad had
expand to fill
Parkinson's.
time.
Oh, that was a different thing.
Yeah, different thing. But his belief is, and I think there's a certain amount of this, is that if you allow too much time to get something done, it just takes that you're just not as effective because it seems to take you longer and you don't do it as well. So therefore, he believes in shortening the time frames to do things in. In other words, you put yourself under pressure to get it done.
So let me back up for just a second here for our listeners, because sometimes, we talk about a lot of stuff. You and I are both pretty well read and educated. Not everybody is. So Pareto's law, the 80-20 principle, can be summarized as follows. 80% of the outputs of your business result from 20% of the inputs. That's it in a nutshell.
So as an example, generally, 80% of your sales go to only 20% of your customers.
Right.
80% of the products or service that you provide are only from 20% of those products in your catalog.
So your two best questions then are, what 20% of sources are causing 80% of my problems with unhappiness? And which 20% of sources are resulting in 80% of my desired outcomes and happiness?
Okay, but to put it in the more practical terms, you say, what are the 20% items that are giving me the 80%? And that's where I should put my emphasis, because they're really getting the results. I'm most effective to work in those 20% areas, whether it be personally or whether it be in a business environment. I want to work in that 20%. And then he goes on to Pareto's theory of Parkinson's law,
which dictates that a task will swell, at least perceived, importance and complexity in relation to the time allotted for its completion. So these are two synergistic approaches for increasing productivity that are inversions of each other. Limit tasks to the important and to shorten the work time.
Right. So what you do is you take your 20% items, and what you do is you shorten your work time to do on it, so therefore you really have to delve in and get it done. So you don't lollygag.
Well, that kind of happens naturally if you're reducing, reducing your activity down to 20%, then you're going to be more...
Well, you have more time, but more time available. But I'll give you a comparison. My wife, for example, if we have something to be done a week from now or a month from now, she wants to get it done today. But she gets it done within a short period of time. On the other hand...
Now, is the philosophy that if you get it done now, you'll have more time to play later?
No, her philosophy is it gets it out of her mind. She doesn't have the stress from her. From her, it's a stress point.
Well, same kind of thing. We did this in years ago when I was working as a machinist. It was... I got the jobs done faster than normal, and that then gave me a time to go cross-train.
Okay, but the other aspect is when I was going back to the example I gave, if I have something to do a week from now or a month from now, I generally like to get it done the last day or the night before, because then I'm under a pressure to get it done, and all of a sudden the thoughts seem to come very freely at that point.
Same way. I did that with the papers I had to write for both my degrees. I'd wait till... Of course, it's gestating. You know what the topics are. You know what you got to do. And it seems like the brain or the mind takes on its own route. And then by the time that you actually sit down to do it, and it has to be done, there's no more resistance. You've just got to do it. And it gets done very quickly. So with that getting done very quickly, we're going to take a quick break here, and we'll be right back with you. Two Small Biz Guys, thanks for listening.
Two Small Biz Guys with Zen and Ray. We'll be back after this.
Are you a small business owner looking for education and information and don't have time for school? Is there an area of your business you'd like to know more about but aren't sure where to go or who to ask? Practical Biz U is an online repository of small business courses now available to you on the web. There are single class options, bundles for specific areas, and monthly memberships for ongoing learning opportunities. Go to practicalbizu.com and sign up today.
As a business owner, have you ever felt alone at the top? You don't have to be. Ray Silverstein has worked with many business owners for over 20 years facilitating peer advisory boards. He is the proverbial mentor and tormentor. A Pro President's Peer Advisory Board is a confidential monthly meeting of non-competitive owners that give support, feedback, and knowledge. They know the adage, all of us are smarter than one of us. He has walked in your shoes, having owned and sold 2 companies with sales in excess of $60 million and approximately 1,300 employees. In Young President's organization, he participated in peer advisory boards and felt it was a key to his success. His passion is to help small business owners succeed. He knows peer boards work when you are open, don't feel like you know it all, are willing to put issues on the table, and willing to take criticism. Be his guest at a Pro Advisory Board meeting to see if it works for you. There's no commitment to join, and you'll have a great experience. To sample a free Pro Business Owner Peer Board, email ray@proprez.com. That's ray@proprez.com. There's no commitment or charge. You're listening to Two Small Biz Guys. Now, back to your hosts, Zen Benefiel and Ray Silverstein.
Sure. Welcome back to Two Small Biz Guys with Zen and Ray. And we're talking about a book which is the 4-Hour Workweek because we want to make you more effective and not just efficient. So the aspect here is we were talking about some concepts before about the Pareto theory of maldistribution, which is the 80-20 rule and Parkinson's law. And
so initially then, you ask yourself, 3 times a day, scheduled times, you make sure that you ask, am I being productive or just active? Am I inventing things to do or to avoid the important?
Okay, so he's talking about how do I create a habit so I work on the things which are effective rather than just being a doer. And so he suggests you say like the 10, 2, and 4.
I'm a pepper, you're a pepper. Wouldn't you like to be a pepper
Dr.
too?
Pepper, right. So if you take the Dr. Pepper rule and ask yourself that at 10, 2, and 4, and you say, am I really working on the things that are effective, or am I just doing things? And the premise here is to create a habit. So you don't have to ask yourself this, so that you just mentally approach the effective items.
Right. So this is kind of like mnemonics of remembering things and creating triggers to do so. You create a time where you stop and ask yourself, and oftentimes, whether you use an egg timer or an alarm clock or just something to trigger you, eventually that habit will become embedded, whether it takes 21 days or not, who knows. The fact is, you'll be able to do what you need to and ask those questions and be more self-reflective of whether you're getting things done or avoiding things.
Yeah, so the aspect is that you want to create this habit of working on effective areas rather than just doing. So you want to form good habits and get rid of the bad habits. The bad habits are working on things you feel that you want to get done, you want to cross the T's, you want to dot the I's, and is it really getting the story written the way you want it written?
Speaking of, like a short to-do list and a not to-do list. So you've got those things there. Now, moving from one to another, this kind of brought some things up that Robert Fritz used to do in Technologies for Creating. You would look at where you're at with an honest viewpoint, look at where you want to be, hold those two images in your mind together, and there is what he calls structural tension that begins to bring those two together. So your mind then offers certain things for you to do that creates the natural sequence to move from one place to the other. I know this sounds a little off topic, but it fits with this idea of effectivity.
Okay, now let me ask you, were you just doing or were you being effective?
I was correlating.
Oh, you were correlating. Okay. We forgot the part between the two. There's a correlation. All right.
Right. You have to correlate between effectiveness and
okay. Now
efficiency.
The next thing he talks about is the low information diet. So you just gave me too much information.
Yeah, I just went off the wagon on that diet.
Okay, so, but he has an interesting format here that he thinks that sometimes when you get too much information, it really slows you up.
We call that information overload.
Right, information overload.
There's a certain point that you get where you just get a headache.
Right, so he says sometimes you have to be what he calls an ignoramus, where you just are ignorant of certain things.
Well, what I'm really excited about this because it just really hit home. Oftentimes when you don't know what you can't do, or you've never done something, or you're in an environment where you're fresh, even though it's an old environment, you're fresh eyes, you ask better questions, you have this simple approach of not knowing what already exists. So oftentimes the things that you're able to ask questions about or get done haven't been done before, or they may have been done and just forgotten about. But with the fresh eyes and the fresh ears and the fresh body and fresh mind, what have you, it's not that you're going to get fresh, but you have fresh ideas. And oftentimes that will make a difference in the effectivity.
But he's also referring to your activity.
Time wasters.
Such as, do you answer the phone? Do you respond to emails immediately? In other words, if you get involved in those habits, sometimes you get involved in doing things you shouldn't be doing. Yeah.
Well, there's the 10, 2, and 4 thing. Take a look then. Don't feel like you have to answer them right away. You hear the ding or the buzz or you feel the vibration, and you don't have to do stuff immediately.
Yeah,
those are distractions.
I had the experience over December. We were getting a zillion marketing calls on our telephone.
Mm-hmm.
And it's because I had changed the number from one number to another, and people were calling marketing calls on an 800 number. So we just got to the point where we just didn't answer the phone because we'd go back and get the message later on. So this particular fellow, he says in his business, in order to give him the 4-hour work week, he doesn't answer the phone. He only gets messages. I'm not suggesting you do this for your business, but and he also...
you have one business that you work with that said they get their business has grown simply because they answer the phone.
That's right, but they weren't getting a zillion marketing calls all the time. So you get to the point where you get taken away from the activity. But he also goes to the point of...
That's where caller ID comes in handy.
That's right, but he also goes to the point of being very extreme and saying on emails he only responds to emails once a week, which seems like a very non-responsive way of treating your clients and customers.
I would think that might be a behavior for someone that is well established and is creating this sense of inavailability because they are so important.
Well, that's because they think they're important. My rule of thumb there is, it's like you heard my analogy before of a restaurant that has 5 waiters and needs 6, but pretty soon they only need 4.
Right.
Because as you don't give your customer service, they're just going to go someplace else. And if somebody thinks that they're so important that they can't be available, they're not very important in my mind.
Mine neither, but some people...
We're mining this together, is that it?
Yeah, we are. Our minds are one.
Oh my God! I can feel the vibration now. This is. I'm having a cosmic effect. This is very dangerous.
The point is, when you reach a level of success where your ego takes over and you don't think or you think you're more important, and you don't have or don't allow yourself access, then you're eventually going to have the opposite effect of what you were looking for. People are going to start walking away.
Yeah, I agree. If you get to that extreme, it becomes a point where you become so efficient that you are not effective.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to have that measurement as between the two as to what is really reasonable and what is unreasonable.
No, one of the things he does mention, though, is that, rather than feel like you have to respond to every email quickly, it's a you-mail at that point, the autoresponder feature.
Yeah, he would put in the autoresponder feature that we received your email. We are working with a customer. We will get back to you by
Yeah, and if you're
a
using any
specified
kind
time.
of drip campaigns or digital marketing platforms or anything like that, even Outlook will allow you to set up an autoresponder. Often mail servers on web hosting and things like that. It's really easy to do.
So you can increase your productivity and your effectiveness by putting in autoresponders, but you do have to respond within a reasonable time frame.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
I also get a kick out of people who have on their voicemail that they say, "We received your thing, and I'll call you at my convenience." And that just drives me up the wall, because why should they be calling me back at their convenience? Maybe I'm not convenient at that time.
Right. Well, yeah, it depends on whether you're personally focused or whether you truly are customer centric. And this is one of the concepts that is really overlooked. The more you want to develop your business, the more customer centric you need to be, the more relationship minded.
But that raises also an interesting question, which will go off a little bit. Who's more important, your customer or the employee? I can see that you're.
Yeah, I'm kind of doing a.
You get two different answers. Most people will say.
I'm doing a Rastro look. The head tilt. It depends on the issue. Oftentimes those things are interrelated.
Well, it comes.
If you don't have the customers, the employees aren't going to matter.
That's true, but the other aspect is if you don't have the right kind of employees, you're not going to have the customers.
True.
So they are interrelated.
Delicate balance.
So it goes back to this aspect of where you get to be so efficient or so what you think is efficient may not be effective, and you have to have this. You have to really drive in on the effectiveness, and that's kind of what. If you summarize all of his points really come down to focus and being effective. And that way you reduce the time, and also the effectiveness is also a question of trust, of working with your people that work with you, that you delegate and you give them the authority and responsibility.
And so he uses one of Bill Gates' quotes. He says, "The vision is really about empowering workers, giving them all the information about what's going on, so they can do a lot more than they've done in the past." And that goes back to kind of what I was saying earlier. Happy employees get more done with less supervision. If you're delegating, empowering them,
and engaging
and trusting them, and they're aware of that. And of course, that does grow over time. But when you're working your business with that kind of philosophy, the business is bound to grow. All things given.
Right, and also all things given, your ability to work in the business and your available time becomes even better because you have good teamwork there and you have good people that you can depend upon. So it gives you the opportunity to think about those things to protect the business for the future, which would be whether it be technology or whether it be changes in demand, but it gives you the opportunity to think about those things and work in those areas which are really protective of all the employees.
Absolutely, and that gets into the very last point that he makes, and that's the MBA, the management by absence. So as an owner, you can get to the point where you can walk away because you've got the right people in place doing the right things at the right times at the right price.
And I'm glad you brought that up because we are a believer in MPAs, Masters of Practical Business, and you can get a lot of free information.
That'd be MPB.
And practical. That's right. And you can get a lot of practical information on our website, www.practicalbiz. That's biz.com.
Gosh, you're almost correct.
Oh,
it's Practical Biz U. You forgot the U. Ray. It's all about you, and that's the letter U.
You better correct me again because I forgot that.
That's okay. It's Practical Biz U, folks, and we're two small biz guys, and we've also got a website, the numeral 2, small biz, B-I-Z, guys.com. Got lots of information there for you, more shows for you to come and listen to, and thank you so much for listening to this one.
Thank you for listening to Two Small Biz Guys with Zen Benefiel and Ray Silverstein. You can hear Two Small Biz Guys live every Wednesday at noon or catch their show on demand anytime 24/7 right here on StarWorldWideNetworks.com.